Alex. I'm going to look at Jessie's tappets. There just seems to be one tappet that's being a little bit noisy. I'm not happy with it. So I'm going to go through checking the tappets and show you how I do it. I'm only going to check the inlet valves. I'm not doing exhaust, it's a pain in the bum, and I'm pretty sure the noisy one is from the top end. You'll see in a minute. I've just been out for a drive, so the engine's nice and warm, which is how you should check the tappets when it's nice and warm. I've brought her out here, or I've left her outside of the garage, but I think it's going to rain. Right, I'm going to do the filming in stages because I have no tripod for this camera, so I'm just going to do it one-handed, you know. So first things first, we need to get this monstrosity off the top of the engine. So what I will be doing is I will undo that, take that wing nut out, which I can do with one hand. Take that out. I've got this mucky area that I dump things on. Then I will undo nut and bolt here and nut and bolt here. I'll undo this, slacken this screw off and pull that pipe off, and then it should all just lift off out the way. Okay, so I've undone these bolts, I've taken that off, I've taken that pipe off, and I've put a rag between the airbox and the engine because I've not long ago painted this all up nice, so I don't want to chip it. I'm gonna film this awkwardly. I must invest in a tripod. Okay, so it all comes off in one unit, so you don't have to mess about taking those hose clips off or anything. And with the rag there, you haven't damaged it, which is nice. So now you can take the rag and lay it on a bench, or in my case on the floor, and you can sit that on top of the rag and keep it nice. So the next step is I'm going to pop this off. That I normally sort of cable tie out the way, just so it's not flopping down into the tappets you're trying to check. So tie that up out the way if you've got the tube. If not, just make sure the leads are out the way. And then we've got to take that and that off, and then that will just lift off out the way. And again, you probably want a rag or somewhere nice to put it down on so you don't contaminate it. One-handed recording is my speciality. Because you're left-handed, isn't it? It doesn't look like it. Bye, spanner. Yeah, so these just come off. I mean, ideally, if you haven't, or if you don't know when the gasket for this top cover was last changed, I would get a new gasket before you do any of this, because if it's an old gasket it might be broken or you might break it taking it off. Excuse me sniffing. So I would suggest getting a new gasket really, but I know my gasket's new and they're not really prone to leaking up here. They don't chuck a lot of oil about. I mean, I've even had the engine running with the top cover off and it doesn't spray oil anywhere. In fact, I shouldn't brag about it, I drove the car around for 2 days before I noticed my dipstick was hanging up on the wall and I hadn't actually put it back in the engine. But thankfully no oil loss. I'm sure you all want to see this moment. Actually, before we do this moment, let's have a look there. Look. Inlet, engine hot. Exhaust can be done hot or cold. Okay, so this is inlet because it's near the carburetor, which is the inlet. The exhaust valves are under the exhaust, which are outlet because crap goes out the exhaust. Just in case you didn't know. Yeah, so I'm going to get my little feeler gauge in a minute. Let me take this hot cover off and try not to burn my hands because it is really hot. In fact, I'm going to go for the one-handed attempt. Savage, aren't I? Look at that. It's lovely and clean because I've not long had it off. I'm just going to lean it on there so it's ready. So my gasket's not old, it's quite new, healthy looking, so it can just sit there. I'm not going to disturb it because I know it's going to be okay. As I say, it's not a messy engine, it's not got oil everywhere like some vehicles. So here's the rockers on top of the valves. Ah, bloody hell, that was my eyes. When I say my eyes, I mean my glasses. I don't normally work with my glasses on. I don't know why I've got them on. My glasses are for distance, they're for driving. So I've still got them on from the run. So the engine's nice and warm. So you want to make sure the ignition's off, key out, which you should have done to begin with. Safety measure is disconnect the coil. Just don't forget to put it back on afterwards because you'll forget and wonder why it won't start. Starting handle's out, ready to bash my shins or smash my kneecaps. Because we'll need that to help move the engine around to check the tappets. So what was I going to say? Oh yes, to make it easier to turn the engine over would be to lessen the compression, and the way of doing that is you can take the spark plugs out. I'm not going to do that because I'm hard and I'm going to struggle to turn that handle because I'm too lazy to take all the spark plugs out. Now, if you do take the spark plugs out, make sure you know which order the leads go in, which is handy with this tube because you can't really mix it up. They're in order. So pop the caps off, take the plugs out, and the engine will turn a lot easier because any built up compression will just go out of the spark plug hole. Not aggressively like that, but you know what I mean. Because we're going to be turning the engine over and the compression is going to come out the exhaust, but it's going to be squeezed through a very small valve hole. It's getting dark, isn't it? It's getting dark. So if you want to check that one, you need to be looking at that one over there. Bollocks. Right. So we need to be watching that one over there. Oh, I'm gonna go and get a torch because this is lame. Check me out. I've got 2 hands and a torch. So we need to be looking at this rocker here. Now what I like to do is I like to turn the engine over until that one goes all the way down, and then I watch it come all the way up, and it gets to the point where you watch it come all the way up, and you turn the handle. I normally turn it one little bit because you want to get to the point where you're turning the handle slowly and this doesn't move anymore. Once that doesn't move anymore, that means that our number 1 valve over here is ready to be checked. So we're going to watch this one. Okay, so we're going to go all the way down and all the way up, and we're going to stop just as this stops moving. Make sure it's not in gear because it will run you over. I thought it was in gear for a minute. Right, see, it's going down now. Oh, and it's coming back up. So now we want to go slow. It's coming. There. It's at the top now. And I turned the handle a little bit and it's not moving anymore. So that means we're ready to check. If I can turn my little random camera mount I made up. Oh my goodness. This is what we're checking. This gap in here. Ooh. So it's in there and it's nice and tight, but not too tight. I can still slide the gauge around. I've got my hand on the torch area. Can we see? I think we can see. So this gauge goes in here and we can slide it around. But you can feel that both sides here and here are both sort of gripping. You know, there's resistance between both, you know, which is good. You don't want it to be rattling in there, and that's tight because you have to drag it out. That's good. Okay, on to the next one. Sorry about the wobbly camera work today. So we want to check this one next. So what we're looking at now is that one. So basically we're going to go and do the opposites. So to check that, we look at that. To check that, we look at that. To check that, we look at that. And then we want to check that, we then reverse and we want to look at that. And then we check that and we want to look at that. And when we check that, we look at that. So that's how this engine works. Obviously it's not the same on every engine, I imagine, but with this inlet outlet arrangement, that's how it works. And there's probably a nice order to do it in, so you don't have to keep turning the engine over and over again, but I haven't got that order written down, so I'm just doing it, you know. I'm going to check this one now, so I want this one to be doing that movement. So I'll balance the camera in. So we're going to watch this one. And we want it to go down, and then we'll watch it come up. There she is, she's going down. And she's coming up. That's it. She stopped moving now. So now, ooh, back here again. I'm going in here. And again, that's in there. And you can slide the gauge about. So that's good. That doesn't need adjusting. And I'll go through them all with you. So now I want to check this one, so we need to watch that one. It's going down, and it's coming up, so just keep edging that handle forwards. There, it's stopped. So now we'll check this one. Ooh, this one's a bit tight by the looks of it, but you can still, there you are, as long as you can get it in there and move it about, which you can, I'm happy with that. People saying noisy tappets are happy tappet. Noisy tappets drive me insane. But that is, you know, that is suitable. I know some people will be like, oh, you know, it's a bit tight, but I'm happy with that. Save messing about for the sake of like a minute amount. So we've checked the first three, so now we want to check this one. So now we need to watch that one. So we need to watch that to check that. Right, it's going down. It's coming up. And it stopped. Okay. Now we check this one. Once again, very tight fit, but it is moving. So again, I'm just going to leave that well alone. Now we want to check this one. So we need to watch this one over here, which is off camera. I'll try and spin you around. Get a close up on this one. A wobbly close up at that. See, this one was already down, so now it's just, we just got to watch it come up. There we are, stop moving. So now we go all the way over here to check this one. And again, it's a very nice tight fit. It's hard to get the gauge in there, but that's alright. You'll probably get a firmer gauge in this. This is a bit floppy and annoying, I don't know. So now we want to check this one. So we need to watch our first one. So we'll have an extreme close up for that one. So it's going down, coming up. That's it, she stopped moving. We'll checkmate you over here. Now this one, interesting. I can't get the gauge in. So I think that one really, that one does, for the sake of the engine's health, that one needs to be loosened a little bit. Because that's not on. That is not on. Right, okay. So what I do, it's quite handy because you want to see how to adjust it, don't you? Let's try and get the torch down there a bit more. There we are. Can you see? Not very well. So we're looking at one of these, but we're looking at this one, obviously it's a bit hidden. I normally go with the socket to crack it off because they can be a bit tight. socket to crack it off. And these are 1/2 inch by the looks of it. So I've got a 1/2 inch spanner here. So what we do, we get the gauge. So we've cracked it off now, you see, so it's like a, I can say this on YouTube, I'm sure, it's like a prick in a well bucket. Yeah, so that is unacceptable, that is too loose. It's not gripping both sides at all. That's just going to tap like a bugger. Okay, so to adjust that gap, we turn this screw. Okay, now sometimes when you turn the screw, the whole nut will turn, and that's what's probably happened in the past. Is I've done the nut up, and it's turned the screw and tightened the gap. So we're almost there, but it's still a little bit floppy. So we turn that screw a little bit more. It's minute adjustments. There she is. That's now grasping at both sides, which is ideal. So to finish this off now, we need to hold the screw steady, hold it into the position it's at, and then we want to tighten this up, but you can't get that end of the spanner in. We need to put that end in first. Put that on the nut, hold the screw, and then tighten the nut. Now I can guarantee you, I bet I let that screw move. Let's check the gap. No, that's okay. We can move it. It's all slippery because of the oil. That's okay. That's acceptable. So that's how you adjust them. And I'll just show you that again on the adjustments. I'm not going to loosen them off because I can't be bothered. But so if you say you wanted to adjust the gap on this, yeah, just an example, you would need to crack this bolt off first, this nut. I normally crack it off with a socket because it's probably really tight. Crack it off with a socket, check the gap. So the gap's going to be, say, too big. So you then want to get the screwdriver in there and you just tweak it tiny little bit, and then you check your gap. If it's still not enough, just tweak it a bit more, check your gap, and if your gap's good, then what you want to do is you want to get your ring spanner on and you want to hold that screw as still as you can whilst you tighten the nut up, because you're keeping the screw still and you tighten the nut up. Once they're tight, check your gap again, make sure it hasn't moved. If it's moved, repeat the process, but when you do the nut up, just make sure you haven't moved that screw. Okay. And then the other thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how I use the handle, so so you know what I'm doing. Okay, so this is just to demonstrate how I turn the handle. So I've got my spark plugs in, so the compression is there, so it's really stiff to push. So I normally put, because this turns, I put my hand down on it like that, and when I'm checking them, I'll just check one, so you can see what I'm doing, and I'll go through it. So I'm checking my number 1, so I'm looking for that back one, and it will slip and make you jump. Right, so I bring the handle up, and then you'll feel resistance there, and because I'm a weakling, I use my leg to push it up. So I'm still looking at my valve, and it's going down now. So it's going down, it's going down, it's going down, and it's just starting to come up. So again, I'll come back to get the compression, and I'll use my leg as a weight to get it over that pivot, and I'm still watching it, and it's going up, it's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up. It's one little more movement, like tiny. You couldn't hardly see me moving, I bet. And it's stopped now, it's not moving. So now we just leave it. And then you check it. And then to check the next one, again, come up, get the compression, push it down, push it down, push it down. So I can see my next one. My next one is going down, it's going down. And it's just starting to come up, just starting to come up. There we are. That's it. Just the small movements on that handle, just to watch it. You must watch the valve all the time. Once it stops moving, you stop moving, and then you can check your valve clearance. Well, that's how I do my tappets, and it seems to work absolutely fine this way. And I didn't find my noisy tappets. Annoyingly, it must be on the exhaust side, but it's only minutely noisy. I'll just turn the radio up. I really can't be bothered to take the exhaust off and do those tappets again. And why I'm leaning down here, filming like this angle, I don't know. Why I'm making it hard for myself. Whew. So thank you for watching. And I don't think you need to see me. See the film of me putting it back together, or perhaps I will. Perhaps I'll balance the camera somewhere and I'll just speed up the refitting of everything, just to, you know, I don't know, say I did it. So I'm going to get a rag now and clean up this gasket, make sure it's nice and clean before putting the cover back on. Once the cover's back on, it's all back together. Don't forget the wire on the coil. Yeah, I'll start her up and watch her go. In fact, saying that, this is such a good engine. I say it's a clean engine. We'll put the coil back on. Right, we'll make sure there's nothing fouling. Nothing's in the way there. Okay, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something people won't agree with. People won't agree with. I'm going to put the ignition on. I've got a marble that seems to rattle around. Look how good this engine is. It's like a little sewing machine. That's what your engine does. How low revs we're at the moment. You imagine how fast they're moving when you're flying down the motorway. And that's why you have to check them, because they're going so blooming fast. They can come loose or whatever. Yeah, I'll turn her off now. Do you see how the oil was coming up through these little holes and gently dripping down here and keeping this all lubricated? It really is a lovely engine, and it's lovely to watch it all in action, you know. So we'll get it all back together now. Cut. When you do the exhaust valves, it's basically the same principle as doing the top one. So you check the one, you check the opposite, etc, etc. Just treat it the same, but obviously the exhaust is 10, not 6 on the measurement. And also it's a pain to get all the manifold off. So don't do it when the engine's warm, but not hot, because you try and get that exhaust off when it's hot. You need oven gloves. Okay, I just thought I'd point that one out. Before you tighten these up, make sure the gasket is sealing all the way around, because it can slide around. Like for instance, up here you can't see. Well, you can, I can't. See, there's a bit of a gap there. I'd probably try and move the gasket up a little bit to make sure it's sealing. That looks good, that looks good. So I'll tweak this front one up here because I'm happy with it sat there. And then at the back here, make sure it's sealed up nice. Thanks for watching. Bye.